Hi everybody, Ricky here from Behind the Bars TV. In this episode, I'm going to be talking a bit about the youth of today, particularly kids in your own area, and a bit of a reflection of myself when I was a youngster growing up. And the reason why I want to make this video is because I'm passionate about trying to change the youngsters' mindsets. Because a lot of the times, without realizing it, the younger generation, and I'm mostly talking about people or kids in the teenage years that are going off the rails and they've got no guidance, they've got no one to show them any different to what they might be seeing at home or seeing on the streets or when they're out with their friends, or they're watching loads of social media with negative influences, listening to rap music and getting in a distorted mindset what you think as a child or a young kid that is the normal mindset, a bit like myself when I was that age. But what I will say to start with is a massive thanks to all my subscribers for your continuing support. I've got a massive loyal fan base with loads of great feedback, and I'm delivering messages to you lot, showing you what it's like in prison, showing you the not so glamorous side of it, and letting everybody know what prison is really like and trying to deter the youngsters from going down the path that I went down. Because I just think if there was more people like myself around in the area trying to deter the kids from going to prison and getting into trouble, instead of just standing around like a lot of people do and letting it happen and not doing anything about it, not giving them any guidance, and not doing anything apart from giving them negative feedback, which a lot of people do, which you see on these Facebook pages. And instead of thinking of solutions or different things to encourage the kids not to get into trouble, everyone jumps on the bandwagon to grief these type of kids or give them a hard time, say they're worthless and they're not going to ever amount to anything. Behavior like that is never going to change the kids' attitudes. It's only going to make them worse. So what I'm trying to do is educate them how not to go down the path I went down, and also try and encourage them to do something positive and pro-social, and not get in the negative mindset. You're probably already in it, but to get out of that negative mindset. Because when you're growing up in areas like here in Stanley, County Durham, a lot of places are exactly the same, where you grow up around negative influences. There's nothing really going on. There's nothing for kids to get up to. There's no positive role models apart from the people that are hanging around the streets, getting pissed, getting into trouble, getting into fights. And then you've got the other lot that's further up the chain, or should I say, further up the social platform, that are just looking down on kids instead of giving them education and trying to deter them from going down that path. So what I will say is, for the kids that are knocking around the streets, have a good hard think about what you're doing. Don't just follow the crowd and go out, and don't be going out carrying weapons, because I know a lot of people might watch some of my stuff, and some of yous won't, but some people will be saying, well, you're a hypocrite because I was doing that same sort of thing when I was that age, but I knew no different. I know people say you know what you're doing when you're a kid. Yes, you know what you're doing, but if you've grew up in that environment where it just seems to be the norm, you see fighting all the time, you grow up around violence, people out in your street where you grew up fighting, taking drugs, drinking alcohol, getting off the heads all the time and fighting, and you don't see any different. So what happens when you get older and you go out drinking? You're going to end up doing the same sort of things like I was. I was going out fighting, getting into trouble, in a negative mindset, wasn't thinking about my actions, wasn't thinking about who I was hurting in the process, and I was in a negative mindset. And it took for me to go to prison to get out of that mindset. But I want to try and get the youngsters out of the mindset before they get to prison, or stop them from going to prison, not before they get there. There is no before getting there. it's stopped them from getting there completely. Because once you get to prison, you're stuck in that revolving door, and you're meeting people in prison who are like-minded. And if you haven't got any good family support or friend support on the outside, you could become trapped in that system, because you meet friends in prison, and then when you get out, you meet up with them. And this is what I mean by the revolving door. You're just continuously always going to be getting into trouble unless you get yourself in a better mindset and you get out of that. Because anybody that's doing a big sentence that I've come across, sensible people, or you might think, well, how can they be sensible when they're in prison? Some people become sensible when they're in prison. They mature in prison. They haven't had the right upbringing, and they haven't seen the right role models, or they haven't had the right moral role models, and they haven't seen the positive ways in life, and it's all negative. They've ended up in prison, and that's when they've changed the mindset. They've got into a better mindset, but obviously it's too late by then. So what can you do to better that? And the best way to do that is pass on your knowledge to try and stop the next generation from making the same mistakes that I did, that we did, the people that are trying to make a difference and educate kids. We're not going to be talking to them, or I'm not going to be talking to kids or talking to people in my area saying, don't do this, don't do that, sounding as if we're lecturing them, but educate them not to do the things that are going to land you in trouble or land you in prison. And the main one for me, what I try to get across and what I speak to my kids about, more so me oldest kid who's 11 and he's just started in the big school, don't be going out and carrying knives, because I know a lot of these kids that go out carrying knives, they might not intend to use a knife, but if you go out carrying it and you get pissed up with your friends, you're going to end up using that knife, and you're going to end up taking someone's life, and you're ruining their life, their family's life, and then you ruined your life and your family's life. It's just happened not so long. Well, it happened last year, but it's only been in the papers recently. I think it was last week or this week, when a 15-year-old boy from over Gateshead has just been convicted, or found guilty, of murder. He was 14-year-old when he done it, and he killed another 14-year-old boy. The young lad was called Thomas, I believe, and may he rest in peace, and God bless his family. I feel so sorry for them. And these kids that have went out that night, I bet you any money they wouldn't have had in their minds that they were going out to commit murder. But these are the things that I want to educate the youth on. If you go out with a knife, you lose your inhibitions, you get pissed up, and you stab somebody, you might not be intending to cause them serious harm, but all it takes is one stab to end their life. And then everybody who's involved, the victim's family and the defendant's family, everybody's lives are ruined. A young lad has lost his life, sadly lost his life, and another young lad is in prison for the rest of his life. Even when he gets out of prison, he's stuck with that life license. His life is ruined. The victims' families, their lives are ruined. So think about what you're doing before you think about picking knives up and going out onto the streets, because it is not the way to be going. It's a coward's way of taking out knives and stabbing people. But again, when you're in that mindset from that young age, you know no different. You've brought up around it. All the people that you've known since you were a kid who have been in trouble, they're carrying knives, they're carrying weapons, and you think there's no wrongdoing in it. Or you know there's wrongdoing, but you don't think of the consequences. You don't think what it's going to lead to. You don't realize your actions are going to land you in serious trouble. And when you land in prison, you're suffering for the rest of your life. So what I will say to the young ones that are going around causing trouble and getting into aggro, most of the time you're not really thinking about anybody else. You never give other people a second thought. And you're quite selfish at that age. You're always thinking about yourself, the way people might look at you, your reputation. But think about what sort of reputation you're going to have when you're stuck in prison and your friends don't come to visit you. You're stuck in there. You've got no one if you're lucky enough to have a family on the outside, the majority of them won't stick by you. One or two who mean the world to you might stick by you, but what good are you to them when you're stuck in prison? You can't support them. You're stuck in there for the rest of your life. And I think there needs to be more people speaking like this, especially someone like myself who's been there, wore the t-shirt. I've been there and done it myself. I was in that mindset when I was a youngster. I went to prison. I suffered for it. And not just me, because a lot of people say, well, it wasn't just you that suffered. What about your victims? Yes, of course, the victims have suffered. The victims will be still suffering, the victims' families. But you're still suffering, the person that done it. I got landed with an IPP sentence, which is a 99-year sentence. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And that's all down to my actions, what I'd done when I was a youngster in that negative mindset. So think about all these type of things before you go out getting into trouble, because it's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. If you've been to prison, you've got to declare everything for insurance purposes. It ruins you getting future jobs. Every single aspect of your life is going to be affected if you end up in prison. And like I've just mentioned, you've got to declare it when you're getting a job, which is do DBS. If you go for a job, they do background checks on you. If they found out you've been to prison, the likelihood of you getting that job is zero. It's very hard to lead a normal life once you've been to prison. So think about this before you go out committing daft offences or carrying weapons that are going to end your life and end other people's lives. And these are the things that I'm trying to get out there and teach the younger generation, because there's not enough people talking to them like the way I want to. I'm talking about this is what I'm wanting for the future when I'm going down and do, because I'm going to try and get into places, or I'm going to do talks with youngsters in my area to try and deter them from doing that, because I think they'll listen to the likes of me. They're not going to listen to police. They're not going to listen to teachers. They're going to be anti-authority, which a lot of kids are at that age. Most of the kids that get into trouble have been kicked out of school and they don't like being told what to do. So if you've got people coming from a different angle and not telling them off, not telling them what not to do, but telling them in a roundabout way why you shouldn't be doing it and why or what is going to happen, the consequences, and also letting them know what is actually going to happen when you get to prison. It's not this glamorous lifestyle like you see all over TikTok. It's like what I've just mentioned. You're going to be suffering with mental health. You're going to lose friends. You're going to lose family. You're going to lose all them connections. Yes, you might make other connections whilst you're in prison, but it's the wrong type of connections. And a lot of the lads that are in prison are in and out all their lives. Like I've mentioned, it's a revolving door. They end up on drugs whilst they're in prison, and it just becomes a vicious circle. And it's something that you need to try and avoid from a young age. But like I say, it was a little bit different. This video come from a different angle because this is the message that I'm wanting to get out there. I led that lifestyle. I went to prison at a young age, 20-year-old. I didn't get out until I was 25. And I changed my mindset whilst I was in prison. But if things had been different, if I'd been taught different when I was youngster, if I had different role models in my life, if I had people telling me the right way to go, what I'm doing with my kids, what I'm doing with my oldest son. And the best bit of advice I would also give is try and get into some sort of sport that is going to benefit your life and make you feel good about yourself. Try to get the kids into the boxing. Boxing is a great sport for youngsters to get into. It's going to keep them physically and mentally fit, give them something to focus on. And who knows, if they go on to have fights or compete in the amateurs or anything like that, it's going to give them a good sense of achievement, knowing that they've actually made something of themselves and they're doing something that's improving the lifestyle and not negatively affecting it. But I hope you're all enjoying that video, people. Keep a watch out. I'll be uploading more videos soon. And if you are enjoying the content, remember to like and subscribe. Take care.